Welcome to the Louie Herron podcast, where I'm going deep into business, sales, leadership, and life. And I mean life, from the boardroom to the bedroom, from business acquisitions to personal addictions, from being saved yet still feeling like a slave, from manning up to mousing out, dealing with divinity to reality. This podcast is dedicated to growth, learning, inspiration, and healing. Jump in, hang on, and hang out. You'll never know which topic I'll tackle next. But one thing's for certain, I'm here to share my experiences, strengths, failures, and hope, all to help us live life at the highest level we can. Hey guys, welcome in. This is Louie Herron, your host here on the Louie Herron podcast. It's funny. I'm thinking to myself, just in the spirit of authenticity. Sometimes I do these podcasts at different times of the day, and it's actually like daylight savings. We just flipped the time. It's almost 6 o'clock. Man, it feels like it's 10:30. Like I'm literally like, what's going on here? Had a good leg workout this morning. Legs are already feeling the pain. So anyways, we're gonna bring something to you today that I'm kind of excited about. I want to give you a real quick before I get started. A little tip: some of the guys that are out there, I just left the Infinity store this past weekend doing a sales meeting. We were doing a Facebook event for them, and in my automotive business, we do all kind of events for car dealers. But it never ceases to amaze me. I offered them. We were doing the event, but I actually offered them a 31-day schedule complimentary. It's one of the things that I had in a program that I sold for car salespeople. But basically a 31-day program on how to market Facebook on a daily basis. And basically I had the whole thing laid out for 31 days straight. All they have to do is press record. It's already identified what needs to be said. And sometimes I look at the reactions and it never ceases to amaze me the amount of resistance and what's available to these guys and gals that are in any business. Actually, it doesn't really matter if it's automotive, could be real estate, insurance, anybody that's out there. Really and truly, the greatest space we all have is attention. The one of the greatest mediums to get attention that costs you zero for the most part is social media. And I know it could err on the side of narcissism. It can err on the side of too much, but then that's where the training comes in, where people have to understand that there's got to be a jab, jab, then a hook, right? So everything you say can't be all about the deal. It can't be all about what's going on. There's got to be more to it. Anyways, I just wanted to encourage you guys that are out there in the business world to continue to push yourselves to get out there in the social media world, continue to create content, videos, audios, podcasts, anything and everything, because people need to know who you are and they need to know what you do. If they don't know who you are and they don't know what you do, you may not get much from them. So, anyways, little business tip to going in. Again, we're talking today, kind of picking up where I left off last week. I'd posed two questions to you guys in terms of who are you and where are you at? And we talked about assessments and we talked about kind of who you are if you peel everything back. And I wanted to go just a little bit deeper, not so much on those two questions today, but I really wanted to share with you that really believe that people are more motivated by love than fear. However, the world continues to sell fear. Now, I want to try to do my best and prove to you, because I really think when you think about business or marketing, or you think of any leadership, there are certain type of quintessential leaders that come to mind: dictators, people that are tough, rough, coaches. We all get images in our mind, but I want to share with you, love outdoes fear every single time. And when we get to the end and we get on the deathbed, we'll really realize that to be true. So before we get to our deathbeds, not to be morbid, but hopefully one of these days we can understand. What I want to do is try to illustrate some things of how we can understand how we can take our lives to the next level by answering those two questions. Of who are you and where are you at in your life? I want to encourage you to really stop selling fear to yourself. I can tell you a lot of what I want to share with you comes from my personal experience, and I can promise you're not going to work harder because you keep telling yourself that you're a piece of shit. I have told myself I'm a piece of shit many times. That came from and has been rooted in where my dad would call me a piece of shit many times. And so you start to believe a lot of things that people tell you over and over and over. And we can use that as motivation, and it can elevate us for a short period of time. But again, that fear and that negativity is a short-term motivator. But love and compassion is the forever game. Think about that for a second. The fear and negativity that we've probably all experienced coming up in our childhood, it's a short-term game. Let me go back and say this. I think growing up, I was very fortunate. Let me cover a couple things that made me feel very fortunate. Excuse me. Number one, I had an alcoholic and a drug addicted mother who was abused by my stepfather. Uh, um, I was beat up a time or two, or three, or four, or hell, actually a lot. Um, and emotionally, I was wrecked as a boy. I can tell you as a young kid, I can genuinely tell you I felt like my dad broke my spirit, like, he literally broke my spirit. Now I came out of that, I mean, I'm gonna walk you through this negativity, this fear, this anger that became this motivator, became this awesome facade mask that wanted to conquer the world. But again, there's a trick to that, and there's polarity, and we're gonna get into that. My biological father left actually when I was 2 or 3, as I can remember. Quite honestly, I've never really asked him. We had some conversation, but there's probably some work to be done there and some clarification. But when I was young, he left, and that left me confused. Then to be raised by my dad, my stepfather, who pretty much reared me as my father till he adopted me when I was 13, but raised me since I was 5. Um, but I know one thing, I never felt good enough. I think if you're like me and you're in the business world, you've grown up in athletics or you've grown up in um, the education field of trying to get scholarships because you were bright or you played in the band or anything of that nature, there at some point, somewhere, maybe in a relationship, maybe as a father, at some point, you said to yourself, "I'm not good enough." I'm not good enough. I felt that way growing up. I felt I was a dummy. I was a dumbass. I was the stupid one, at least by way of conversation and communication that I received, as a kid. Literally, I mean, I kind of embodied that in my mind, and consequently, my grades showed that. I had low self esteem, low self confidence as it related to education. Didn't like to read in public. Stutter. Especially when I read in public. My grades sucked. They really weren't good, and I cheated most of my way through high school to graduate, and that's the truth. And the only reason why I would, made it in football or played or went to college was to play football, and really that ended on a short note as well. But I will say that I lived predominantly, in fear and worry. I wanted to tell you that I had anger, but really it was hidden. It was like camouflage. It was like chameleon like. It was like acting like I was cool, but I I really wasn't. I was pissed off inside. I don't know that I knew how to show it because I think if I tried to show it, maybe it would cause for another, maybe getting hit, or maybe I wasn't allowed to do that. I don't really know what my thinking was at the time, but I know I was confused. But how does this become fortunate, right? Like I said in the very beginning, I was fortunate growing up. Well, how is this fortunate? Um, this motivation turned me specifically to sports, football in particular. More specifically, this motivation really wanted me to get the hell out of the house. That was really my drive. That was my real determination, and that was the vehicle. That was what I was going to use. But I think when I asked myself the question, or I share with you, how was this fortunate? We looked last week of the two questions, but we talked about the story you tell yourself of who you are to believe is what you're made of, is the story that you're telling yourself. And I think we all have a story that shapes us, molds us, motivates us for the short term. And that's what I'm expressing for the short term. But if not processed or dealt with, it will eventually deal with you. So let me just peel this apart real quick, and then I'm gonna push forward, and then I'm gonna put all this together and tell you what does all this have to do with business, leadership, sales. We're gonna tie it together shortly. I want to say, and how this is fortunate, sincerely fortunate, is this story put a fire in my belly. This story pissed me off. It made me angry internally in a positive way of watch what I do. I'm not the dumbass. I'm not the stupid one. I will be able to make money. I don't have to stay here. I do have the ability to play college football. All these things that were in my head, I had the fire. I had this engine inside of me that wouldn't quit. I had this mindset that I was just going to prove wrong. Like I mean, if again, if you tell me I can't do it, it's a trigger word that makes me want to just go handle it and get it done. And as I'm sharing this with you, I know there are people right now listening going, "Yep, that's me. I can relate. I understand." Well, and I can appreciate that. And I'm right there with you. And I will go back and say, if not processed, if not dealt with, these things will end up dealing with you. I was always looking for outside validation, and I'm explaining these things, I'm nearly 50. I'm explaining them to you now as if I've got them all handled. It's not the case. These are things that I still look at, I still struggle with, I still look for the outside validation. Um, I don't obviously get paid for any promotions. I will tell you, I just got done watching, the documentary, Sly, Sylvester Stallone, and it was cool to watch, and I know, if you're like me, sometimes you'll connect with a movie or a documentary where you can just resonate and relate, and this guy had it, his dad was really rough on him, and I'm not gonna spoil it for you, but again, his drive for outside validation, right? He didn't live with his parents as a kid, and so he lived with strangers, and so he correlated this living with strangers was the applause of the audience of other people, but that it was embedded in him, right? But as you listen to his story and what I'm sharing with you now as well is he's dealing with that. And I think Stallone's every bit of 75, 78 years old, and still fostering and thinking about some of these things that happened when he was 13, 9, 7, who knows? You know, just looking for this outside validation. The other thing was the dishonesty with myself, which led to others, right? That's what you would perceive as maybe the negative side, right? But again, like I shared last time, I bought and sold 3 dealerships, Toyota dealerships. It's a big deal in the car business. That's a big deal. Like a Toyota dealership, that's a big deal. Chrysler dealership, that's a good job. It's a big deal, right? So you think when that was all driven by these wounds and these things that were rooted that weren't really resolved. But how is that bad? It looks fortunate, Louis. Well, again, whether I have achieved many things or very little things, the most important things are the things that have to be dealt with that fester under the surface. I could go on and tell you that was fortunate to amass millions of dollars, and I can tell you I've lost millions of dollars. All of these things, and again, I'm not trying to even impress you, but I want to impress upon you that these things to be dealt with. And how does it deal with the business? How does it deal with you selling? How does it deal with you leading people? Well, let me get to a couple things that I think are important. Number one, we talked about it briefly last week. Life is about expansion, right? It's about growth. It's about getting better, but it's also an exploratory journey of self, an exploratory journey. So I had to look that up, right? So I had to go look at the definition, and obviously I know what exploring means and what it looks like. But if you look at the definition, acting of investigating, the act of investigating or thorough examination in investigating or thorough examination, investigating the unknown. So think about that for a minute. It made me think. Let me just take it back. Right, I'm on a journey of an exploratory journey to look at the unknown. I know for me personally, when I'm trying to dig deep and go to places I've never been within myself, man, that's scary. It's not something I want to do. It's something I need to do. It's something I know to do. In fact, those that love me will tell me and call me out on what it looks like and where I need to go. And I fight it because it's uncomfortable, right? But it's going to take a thorough examination of really looking deep of oneself. Again, I think that what's critical of what I just shared with you, of what I thought was fortunate being raised and what may be perceived as unfortunate is the polarity. I think if you look at polarity, there's an up, there's a down, there's a left, there's a right. In my circumstances, there's a light, there's a dark, right? I look at light as God, dark being evil, right? I look at it in a spiritual realm. Again, it allows me to help process. Uh, you can look at the term good or bad. I think we would all agree there are some good things that happen, some bad things that happen, but things happen. It's not really a good or bad. It's just life. And I think if we can all get to a point where I'm trying to get to a point where everything has its reasons and its purpose, none of it is an accident, and all of it just is. It just is for that moment, and it will pass. I can tell you, interesting in looking back when my mother died. She died July 23rd, 2014. I actually had to look that up. That was embarrassing. That's pretty embarrassing. That's how connected I was with my family. That's how disconnected I was with myself. I had to look that up. Like, Google it. My mom. Pretty sad. But nonetheless, I remember seeing her in the casket. physical body, the physical body, her eyes closed, um, and realized she was not what I saw. Like in that moment, like I realized that's not what I saw. And what I saw didn't die. Track with me for a minute. Her physical being was gone, but her spirit, her soul, her energy. My mother was funny. She had humor. She was actually pretty funny. She was kind of goofy funny, but she was actually really, really funny. But her spirit, her soul, her energy, her humor, it was cased in that physical body that I saw every day that was lying before me with eyes shut, but it didn't go. The physical body left, but her spirit moved on. It was never more evident to me really understanding the power of the soul work, what it takes to work one soul through, one to improve, one to get better, one to connect, reconnect, truly connect, be vulnerable enough to be open to learn how connection even takes place, right? To have that humility, right? Something I've lacked like massively, but working through, and I can be open to share that with you, working through that. Again, it's the polarity of life. Really, it's the opposites of life that allow us to expand and grow, right? You have no idea how bad it feels until you understood how good it was, right? It's the polarity, and if we can step back, if I can step back and really appreciate every moment along the journey, that's an exploratory journey of digging deep, of self examination, looking at the unknown, working on getting better. It's going to affect me in the most positive way. The other thing that came to mind was a dealt hand. You ever heard that before? People say, "Oh man, that's the hand I was dealt." Well, I got dealt a shitty hand. Well, again, we're all dealt a hand, all of us. But I don't know that the hand really matters. Again, this is my opinion. I don't know that it really matters, provided we understand that we're on a journey. For example, like my hand wasn't one of poverty growing up. We actually had nice things, right? I didn't suffer. We didn't, we had nice home and, you know, four wheelers and summer times and this, that, and the other. But someone else didn't have that story. My hand was emotional, physical abuse. But somebody else didn't have that story, right? Somebody else had a different story. But the reality is every story, every hand that's dealt by that everyone experiences, many people get to the same outcome of growth and expansion if they grow through it and learn how to handle it. I mean, some were born with it and lost it all. Some had nothing and built everything. Some get to the top only to fall off it. And some never even get to the proverbial top. They're happy as the day is long. Here's my point. Is it fortunate? I think every hand is fortunate. Again, that's my personal opinion. So here, if you're taking notes, if you're driving, I hope you're not taking notes. But we're about to bring this down to how does all of this affect business or leadership or sales or entrepreneurship? Right? It's important for me to relay everything I am back and forth between life lessons and business, and really that's what I love to connect if I can do so with you. So if you're taking notes, let's land this plane. I got four things, and we'll tie this down, and I think it'll be helpful to you. So here's the first thing. Number one, what does all this have to do with business, sales, entrepreneurship? Well, learn the lesson the first time. Quit repeating the hardship. What's the lesson? Well, again, I'm there's no co-host with me. I'm not interviewing anybody, so I'm up here butt naked. I'm gonna have to tell you some of some of my lessons, but I would just tell you, look deep, get help, get real, get raw, be honest, and everything I just told you, I have the hardest time dealing with. Looking deep, getting help, staying real, getting raw, and being honest. Again, those are the things that I would share for the very first thing is learn the lesson the first time. Quit repeating the hardship. It will tremendously make an impact on your business, or anything you're doing for that matter. Number two, the short-term pain. Take the short-term pain for motivation, but not inspiration. In other words, if you had a scenario like I explained where I had fire in my belly and it got me jump started, hey, I got no problem with that. That's again, that's my personal opinion. Use it, but use it for motivation, not inspiration. And then here's the difference, at least the way I would explain it. Motivation is that short-term gas, right? We go fill the car up, we put the 60, 70, $80 in, we get it, we get 300 miles down the road, we got to fill it again, right? So the motivation, we got to keep filling it. You got to keep filling it. Nothing wrong with that. Inspiration means in spirit, means inspired. I am inspired by something. The biggest issue I have by taking short-term pain from my own experience and using that to propel me as my inspiration is again, it's not the spirit I want to embody. If inspiration is in spirit, I want to be inspired by love. I want to be inspired by compassion. I want to be inspired by truth. This is the long game. What I realized today that I may not have known when I was 24 or when I bought my first dealership at 35, but what I didn't realize then is I'm playing the short game. I'm still trying to please the crowd. I'm still looking for the applause. Do I still have some of that in me today? 100%. Yeah, it's the ego. Yeah, I gotta kill that guy. Every day I gotta work hard on just staying within myself. Doesn't mean strip away, the talent, the abilities, the skills, the work ethic, the ambition, the desires, the dreams, the goals, and blah, 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 and all these things. Nothing wrong with that. I have to keep it in check. Maybe you don't. I do. But I will tell you, stay inspired by love and compassion and truth. That's the long game. And, that is what we all will eventually see when when we're down on our deathbed one day, right? In other words, my point is you'll realize that it's about love and compassion and truth. You'll realize that one day when your time's coming to an end and you're looking back on your life, it's about love, it's about compassion, it's about truth, it's about putting yourself out there. It's about family. It's about connection. These are the things that matter most. And again, we know that, and we all, I'm communicating that with you today, and we talk about it as a cliche, as we have conversation. We all know this, but we get in our ego, we get in ourselves, and then next thing you know, we derail ourselves, and again, it takes us to another level. And that's what we want to get away from. We want to get away from that fear because we respond a lot of times out of the fear. Right? I've done that, like, it seems like my whole life, and still to this day, I gotta watch it. Alright, number 3, stop trying to prove somebody wrong versus prove to yourself something right. Again, to me, there's a small shift in paradigm in that statement. When you're trying to prove something wrong, that small shift is negative vibration, but trying to prove something right to yourself is a self-worth vibration, right? I can't even articulate what I'm trying to say. I know somebody who could, but you don't wanna come from the spirit of negativity. You wanna, if you're trying to prove to yourself that you can, that you're worthy, that you're good, that you're whole, that's a position of health. If the belief is there that you believe those things about yourself, and those are the things that get torn down, as we grow up in this world, right? These young babies, when they come out of the womb, and they're the most precious miracles on the planet. They didn't come out the way we are today. They are conditioned. They learn to do those things. The last thing that I think is super important, and it's really on the topic we just touched on as far as self worth. Always remember there's a huge difference between self-confidence and self-worth. There is a huge, huge difference between self-confidence and self-worth. Somebody can have all the confidence in the world, exterior, to conquer, to make it happen, and actually do it, and actually make it happen, right? We all seen people that succeeded. We go, man, how in the hell did he get that? His attitude, da, 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 da. We've seen, yeah, there's self-confidence there. There's nothing. It's not like he didn't have the self-confidence, but is the self-worth really there? Right? If you don't get this one, uh, more, if you don't get this one, more than just your business will die. This is something that's critical to you as a human being. And if you don't believe that statement, let's just go through a few people. What about Robin Williams committing suicide? How about Kate Spade hung herself? Aaron Hernandez played for the Patriots. Kurt Cobain, frontman for Nirvana, guitarist. How about Ernest Hemingway? This guy won the Nobel Prize and the Pulitzer Prize. I don't even know what those are. I mean, the Nobel Prize is an individual that contributes or makes huge contributions towards just human welfare. I mean, pretty big deal. Speaks a lot to someone's character to make moves of that magnitude. The Pulitzer Prize, it just acknowledges journalism or someone who can write really well, outstanding writing and photography. This guy won them both. Here's my point: Robin Williams, Kate Spade, Kurt Cobain. What's missing? Do you think they lack self confidence? Robin Williams get on the stage in front of people, make you laugh. Make you laugh. Kate Spade, didn't see her on the outside, didn't see many interviews with her, but obviously with the ability to create some magical stuff that a lot of people bought. She had to have some confidence to do that. Aaron Hernandez played for the Gators, went on to play for the Patriots, was amazing. I had to have some self confidence to be able to do the things athletically that he did. Kurt Cobain, same thing. All of these people have the self confidence, but at the end, they had everything in the world, but there's something inside of us that says, still not worthy of being happy. I'm not worthy of being, you know, whatever. Again, what does this have to do with business and life and leadership? Man, there's a huge difference between self-confidence and self-worth. Here's my point. If you, me, us, everyone, if we don't continue to work on self-worth, all the accomplishments in business and sales and leadership, they don't last forever. I mean, not even with all the self-confidence outside of our strength and our ego, it doesn't matter how much we muster up. It doesn't even matter how much we muster up. Let me close with this last statement, just about humankind. And what surprises me most about humankind is we get bored with our childhood, rush to grow up, and then be a child again. And then we lose our health to make money, and then we lose our money to restore our health. That thinking anxiety about our future, we forget about the present, such that we live neither in the present nor even in the future. That we live as if we're never going to die, and unfortunately, we die as if we never lived. So as we head to the next week of the Louie Herron podcast, I just want to encourage you guys, kick ass this week. Kick ass this week. Take some personal inventory. Look at the self-worth. Maybe your confidence is high. Maybe your self-worth's pretty strong, but you got to get more confidence. I don't know. But I do know this. I do know that if you keep working on expansion, I know that you're going to get better. I know that if you keep exploring your journey and understand the polarity, that there is no good, no bad, there just is, you're going to feel better. So until next time, this is Louie Herron, and we'll see you on the Louie Herron podcast.